Good morning, everybody. Well, as you can see from this headline from ABC News, despite President Trump having to stop the steal of the federal election, is not single focused. He continues to fight for the common man, you and I. Take a look at this headline from ABC News. Trump ratchets up pace of executions before Biden inaugural, if there's going to be one, that is. As President Trump's presidency winds down, his administration is ratcheting up the pace of federal executions despite a surge of coronavirus cases in prison. Now, what in the world does illness in prison have to do with the due execution of a man who has ceased the right to exist? Let's go on just a little bit with this news story. As Donald Trump's presidency winds down, his administration is ratcheting up the pace of federal executions despite a surge of coronavirus cases in prisons, announcing plans for 5 starting Thursday and concluding just days before the Jan 20 inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. Well, personally, I'd like to see the execution of those 5 on January 20, but that's just me. If the 5 go off as planned, it will make 13 executions since July, when the Republican administration resumed putting inmates to death after a 17-year hiatus, and will cement President Trump's legacy as the most prolific execution president in over 130 years. Bravo, Mr. President. If all you're remembered for is taking out the trash, that would be enough. But it won't be all you'll be remembered for, will it? You'll be remembered for your thriving economy that the Democratic governor shut down. You'll be remembered for trying to protect U.S. citizens by building the wall. You'll be remembered for protecting U.S. from foreign interests by re-engineering trade contracts. You've done a lot for us, Mr. President, so even if you can't stop the steal, you've done enough. But, amazingly, although this story goes on and on and on, it doesn't mention what these 5 are being executed for. It would have you believe, why, these poor people, why are they being executed at all? Why do we have a death penalty? Well, let's see why we have a death penalty. I'm going to stick with legacy media. I had to go to Voice of America to find out why. But even Voice of America, which is federally funded, I don't believe in federally funding anything anyway. If the federal government does fund an organization, shouldn't it at least be voicing the right for the federal government to enforce laws? Well, the headline starts out benignly enough. 5 federal inmates scheduled for execution during final weeks of Trump presidency. But it doesn't stay that way very long. When convicted murderer Orlando Hall was executed at a federal prison complex in Indiana on November 19th, it marked the first time in more than a century that a federal execution was carried out in the remaining months of an outgoing U.S. president's term following an election. It sounds even worse than the previous one from ABC when it said the first federal execution in 17 years, doesn't it? Let's go on to see what these animals did to deserve the death penalty. They include Alfred Bourgeau, who abused and beat to death his 21/2-year-old daughter in 2002, Corey Johnson, a former member of Richmond, Virginia, gang convicted of murdering 7 people in 1992, and Dustin Higgs, who was sentenced to death for kidnapping and murdering 3 women in 1996. Yes, these people richly deserve to die. There are some crimes that are so heinous that there is no coming back from them. These 3 crimes that are listed right here richly point out that some people go so far beyond the pale that there is no coming back from it. That these people, by their actions, have forfeited all rights, including the right to live. Thank you, Mr. President, for continuing to do your job while also fighting so hard to stop the steal.